Hello, welcome. My name is Mike Fauteur. I'm the Executive Director of GiveThx, and welcome to our school visit, where you'll get to learn about our program and the power of gratitude in schools. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our panelists today and just have them unmute and say hello. So first, we have Mrs. Quintero, a teacher from Lindsay High School.
Good evening. It's good to be here and to have all of you with us.
And we also have two of her students, Lindsay.
Hello, I'm super excited to be here and share what I have learned about this program.
And David will be joining us shortly. We also have another teacher, Mr. Donovan Hall from Impact Academy of Arts and Technology.
Hi, everybody. I am really excited to be here and talking to you about gratitude, as well as hearing my wonderful students do an excellent job today.
And those two students are Ariella.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today and tell you about my experience using GiveThx.
And Sharana.
Hey, everybody. It's nice to be here, and I can't wait to get started.
These amazing educators and learners will lead a 20-minute discussion. And afterwards, we'll answer some questions from the audience and those that were submitted ahead of time. So what we'll do to get started is I'll hand this over to Ariella to give a little bit of an overview and kick off the discussion. Ariella.
Hello. So I'm a 9th grade at Impact Academy. I used GiveThx last year, and I'm excited to walk you through what the program looks like. And then we'll share a few slides right now, and then I'll start the conversation off with our panelists. So first, once you have logged into your account, you will see a bar at the top of the page showing you the activity of the notes you have received, given, or your likes within the week, month, all time, etc. You will also see a task section where it will show you what your teacher may have assigned to you, and you will get notifications every time you have received a reaction to a note or have given or when you are assigned a new task. So next you can see your quick stats or strengths, inventory, or the types of notes you are receiving, like friendship, encouragement, accountability, support, love, respect, growth, and the list goes on. The status will present itself once again within the week, month, all time, etc. And one of my favorite parts of the GiveThx platform is sending out the gratitude notes, which we can do by simply pressing the plus GiveThx button. We can choose to send it out to anyone in our class, composing a thankful note and leaving some gratitude to someone's day. And here's an example of what it looks like to write a thanks note, which you can do as simple or as detailed as you want. And for me personally, I would start drafting words up, and all of a sudden I have a paragraph. So it's just so simple and so fun to just give some gratitude to one of your classmates. So that is how it works. And now I'll get things started with a question about the impact of using GiveThx. So how has GiveThx affected your relationships and your sense of the love, belonging in your school community? In many aspects, GiveThx has allowed me to build relationships with my peers, friends, teachers, and getting to know myself and others better. To go more in depth on that, I've started to learn more about the impact I was making in the lives of others, starting to see that I was an influence and inspiration to someone. At this time and to this day, I'm growing in self-love, self-care, to allow myself to breathe. So when I received these notes, I started to realize my value as a human being, the contribution I'm making in my community, and learning the importance to pause and reflect for myself. When we send these notes of gratitude to one another, we are appreciating each other, sending some thanks to someone who has impacted us, and learning about the impact I was making. It helped me build the relationship I had with who I am in so many ways. Gratitude is a core value of mine, and it does positively change the environment we go to school in and surround ourselves in daily. Structuring the strong foundation for kids, teens, staff members, adults to feel safe, to feel welcomed, respected, encouraged, and included. For me, I felt so excited and recognized when I'd get a note, feeling a rush of comfort and appreciation. There is this metaphor I use to give an example of the effects of gratitude, where gratitude is like a seed being planted for a community to flourish and thrive.
Hi. So, give thanks. It gives us the opportunity to be vulnerable and create stronger and more meaningful interactions. I remember when I started high school, I was so scared. This burst of anxiety was inside of me. I remember I saw this as an opportunity to be with 7 different groups of strangers. And it is because throughout elementary and middle school, I was with the same group of people. I had grown to become comfortable with them. But now I had to make friends with 7 different groups of strangers. And this was stressful. However, Give Thanks gave me the opportunity to be vulnerable and make friendships with those around me. And this was especially useful when there was teamwork activities. In those classes where I did not use Give Thanks, I remember how hard it was to start a conversation, to start the activity. We spent a lot of time waiting for everyone to have the courage to speak up and contribute ideas that we often ran out of time. However, in those classes where I did use Give Thanks, we were so productive. Everyone was contributing, and we at the end we had one of the best assignments and projects.
Just like both young ladies have mentioned, there's a part of all of us that wants to belong, whether you're an adult or whether you're a student in the classroom. We want to know that we belong to something, and taking time to be thankful to other people and that's sharing the space with you is a way to accomplish that. Again, and just talking like as an adult, I could have learners send me a note and it would just make me go like, wow, they chose me today. Out of everybody that they could have chose today to send a note to in this classroom, they chose me. And I saw it with my learners as well. I saw them grow. At the end of my first year of giving thanks, it was like one of the last days of the school year. I had a young man come in after school and he just stood there. He was a shy young man and he just kind of stood there and I said, hey, what's up? How are you doing? I just want to talk to you for a minute. Okay. You know, I'm thinking like maybe his grades were wrong or something. He said, you know that program you had us use? And I said, yeah. He said, I liked it. I said, oh, really? He's like, I never knew people liked me until I started using that program. And I think it kind of speaks to sometimes the male population. It's harder for them to talk about their emotions and share their feelings with other people. And so by just practicing this attitude of gratitude on a daily basis, they became more comfortable with it. And he never even knew that people were going to appreciate him or saw him for those things. And I think the real measure of that we're making progress in this environment is when they start to send them like on their own. So when I would get an email that was just like, hey, thank you, or I would get a note at the end of the day or at some random time that wasn't part of the program, that's when I knew that, hey, we're starting to internalize this. Like this is becoming part of who we are as individuals. And I think that plays a role into like supporting students. And Sharon, I think you're going to take this next one.
So our next question is, how do you think Give Thanks and gratitude practice supports students with diverse identities and needs? Personally, I come from a family where saying things like, hey, I love you, or I'm proud of you, those things are very uncommon. We just don't say it. And that made it really hard for me to speak up, sorry everyone, speak up about my own problems and things that I'm going through at school to my parents, to my classmates, to my teachers, to my friends, because it was just so awkward for me. I never grew up doing those things, so I never did them. But then once we started using Give Thanks and gratitude, I started to become more natural with giving gratitude. I learned that this is like a great practice and it's a great way to communicate with people and make your relationship become more smoother and more natural. And then because I was giving so much gratitude to my parents, my classmates, I could speak up about my own problems and they could speak up about their problems with me. And our relationship became on like became better on an emotional level. Before it was just classmate to classmate. But now we were friends and we would be able to share things with each other. And just like Litzy said, we were vulnerable with each other and it was a safe space.
So I really believe in the importance of inclusion and community with especially when talking about things like positive practices, and bringing gratitude to our school and bringing GiveThx to our school was a way to really bring everyone into that good feeling and into this positive practice. And one of the things that I really liked and I really appreciated was that kids were able to give gratitude to teachers. And so not only was I able to see the kids have these reactions towards like getting these really awesome messages, but I would also see like teachers having these really big reactions, and they would be almost identical, where someone would come up to me and be like, I have to show you this message that the student sent me. And I'm like, yeah, we're practicing gratitude. We're doing this in our class. And it's really important because a lot of times people don't feel valued in school. And a lot of times kids will connect like their grades and their academics to their value in school. And so if you don't feel very confident about your grades, if a student doesn't feel confident or good about their academics, then a lot of times they feel like they're not valued at their school. And then to make it worse, if they don't have a lot of friends, then they're not getting any of that kind of positive recognition. So what I really appreciated about gratitude was acknowledging these things that people have in them, and recognizing them and showing them that they are valued and that they contribute to the community, which I think is just really, really powerful. And after that, I'm going to pass it over to Litzy.
So our third question is, how has GiveThx and gratitude practice impacted your personal mental health and well-being? Well, personally, I think the greatest effect has been the positive outlook that I've gained on life. It's basically the fact that when I face a challenge, instead of seeing it as a mountain, I see it as a building block. Why? Because the stress and anxiety that surrounds that challenge, it's like it instantly becomes easier because I am aware of how many times my friends have put their problems aside to help me tackle mine, to give me a support system, help me become stronger. And it is just at this awareness, it makes me happier, more resilient. And it's undeniable. The receiving these notes of appreciation, it gives you a burst of emotions, happiness, comfort, and well, even more gratefulness because I see how my assistance is really, really helping others, how they're thankful, how I lifted a weight off their shoulders. I made their day easier. And at the end, I've become a more optimistic and more resilient person because it's easier to tackle my challenges. I see that if I need help anytime that I feel like I can't tackle them, I can ask my teacher, I can ask a friend, I can ask that girl I met last week.
Well, first off, it makes you feel good, right? Like logging in to GiveThx and just seeing that new message of somebody giving you a gratitude note, it's just like, oh, today I got a gratitude note. I'm so excited. And it puts you in a good mood for the rest of the day. Now, the other thing is for kids dealing with problems at home, like maybe family problems, maybe depression, feeling lonely, not having friends, and just feeling unloved in this world. Gratitude helps a lot with that because when they decide, maybe for kids who even think of taking their own life or harming themselves, when they think of a gratitude note that somebody gave them, they'll think again of like harming themselves. They'll be like, you know what? I am loved because they got that gratitude note. And GiveThx makes that process even easier, where you don't have to walk up to somebody and say, hey, I'm grateful for you. You can do it through an online platform, making it a lot less awkward.
So what Sharana was just speaking about actually hits very close to home for me because I struggled a lot when I was a student. I got good grades and I had friends and stuff like that, but I really struggled with mental health. And gratitude is actually something that saved my life because by the time I got to college, I was just so unhappy and I felt so unseen that I didn't want to be like myself anymore. I didn't want to be alive. And because of just some things that happened, I found gratitude and the ability to wake up and be grateful for like my health, and to be grateful to have a bed to sleep in, and to be grateful to have friends and family. It just really shifted my whole perspective on life in general. Even on the days where things were really bad, having the practice and the ability to reflect on like one thing that I'm grateful for was really powerful to me. And one of the things I really appreciate about GiveThx is, although we do a lot of sending gratitude to each other in the task, there's also these opportunities for students to reflect and do gratitude practices for themselves, because gratitude has a positive impact on the people who send it and the people who receive it, but also you can be grateful for people, places, things, experiences, all sorts of stuff. And so gratitude giving and receiving has a positive impact almost like every way. And for me, I wanted to teach my students about gratitude, but we didn't have like an educational platform. And so I kind of did it my way a little bit. And then my school introduced me to GiveThx, and we started using it. And it was a really accessible way to bring everyone in. And so even if you hadn't had this really big experience with gratitude like I had, they have all these tools and curriculum and plans and reflection tasks where you can really jump in and really understand the importance of gratitude as a teacher while you're teaching it to the students. And I really appreciated that. And I'm going to pass it over to Ariella.
Thank you for that wonderful response. So the next question is, what skills do you feel you've improved by using GiveThx? So for me, using this platform, I'm able to use my voice now to feel more confident as I speak, as I take action to be the person that I am every day. Passionate, driven, creative, empowering, inspiring, and knowing that I am motivating and helping others ignites and pushes that drive to be who I am. Not too long ago, I didn't think much of myself. My whole mindset revolved around good grades, great test scores, keeping up the good work. And don't get me wrong, this is a good mindset to keep, but I needed to learn that the numbers, the percentages, and the letters don't define who I am. Reading the GiveThx notes showed me that I am such a hard worker and I am impacting someone's life, slowly starting to understand my strength and value as a person. I want to continue to strive to be who I am using gratitude, growing my confidence and self-love. I'm going to pass it to Ms. Quintero. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate hearing your perspective of how you've grown. You know, as teachers, we can look at students and we can think that they're growing, but it's always good to hear from the student's perspective. And I think being intentional about gratitude changes our perspective of what we're going through. I started looking, my pathway was a little bit different than Mr. Donovan's. I started looking for a way to do gratitude in the classroom when I started having kids. I knew that when we were in the car on the way to school in the morning, it could be a very hectic, right? Teacher trying to get 2 kids out the door to their places and to get to my job. And it could just be hectic trying to do that. And so on the way to school, we would just stop and we would say, what are we thankful for today? You know, and my son would be like, the garbage cans. And I would say, the garbage cans? Why are you thankful for the garbage cans? And he would have this like really unique perspective on it. And that's when I started thinking like, man, if I could take this into the classroom, because I can't change things that are going on. I can't change a lot that's going on in life. I can't change what the students have gone through in the morning when they come into my classroom. A whole host of experiences, right, that they've gone through before they ever step foot into my classroom, because they are teenagers. Their hormones are changing, friends are changing, life is happening. And when we would just stop and like, what are you thankful for today? Or like Mr. Donovan said, the reflection, like just a small thing, like, let's do a small town throwdown. What do you love about your small town? You know, and it would make them smile, and they're like, hey, it's not actually bad growing up in this small town that's tucked among the groves and nobody knows where it's at. And so you would start to see like they would come into class with a little bit different attitude, because they knew when we came in, we would find somewhere during that period to be thankful for each other or to be thankful for something going on in life. And the question was like, how does this affect academic growth? If I know that I'm accepted, if I know that I'm appreciated, I will take risks. I will take risks that I would normally not take, because I know people like me in that room. They've said it enough ways, different ways. They've sent me a thank you note. And again, I'm talking about from a teacher perspective too. I will try things in the classroom because the students will be like, hey, Ms. Quintero, that was kind of weird today, but it was fun. And it just lets me know that they appreciated the effort that I took and when I put into that. And so, and it made me intentional as a teacher. Have I taken time to let so-and-so know that I appreciate their presence in the room? They were gone. Did I let them know that we missed them? Because, you know, that can be like, hey, if I'm gone, I think, Sharana, you were talking about like, you know, some people feeling suicide or feeling, and that happens, we've seen an increase in teenagers. And so just this whole practice and like what it's done for me, and you're like, it's just a program. Yes, but it's an intentional program. And so it makes me be an intentional. And I think, when was the last time I told so-and-so that I appreciated them? Oh, so-and-so was absent today. I'm just gonna send them an email and let them know, hey, I missed you today in class. I can't wait to see you next time, because they know that they were missed, that they were important enough that I took the time to do that. And then it's like having this reciprocal effect. Okay, I'm letting everybody know at work that I appreciate them, that I love them, that I care about them. Have I done it at home today? So then I go home and it's just continuing this process of making sure that, you know, everybody that we come in contact with, do I appreciate them? In class, we've even practiced giving a thank you note to somebody we've argued with. I mean, just like think about that for a second. If we learn to do more of that, I argued with you, I don't agree with you, but hey, I appreciate your perspective. Thanks for sharing it. And we've had learners give thank you notes for that. And so I just think it's this reciprocal thing. We've all talked about it here today. It changes our outlook. It changes our mindset. It makes us feel part of a community just by somebody saying thank you. So I think I'm passing it back to Mike at this point, but Mr. Donovan's got something he'd like to add.
Oh, I see. I know you're a teacher. You caught it so quickly too. I just wanted to add on to that because I wanted to recognize something that Ms. Quintero had talked about a little while ago, being like a Black man. It's been very difficult to feel like it's okay to share my emotions, and not just talk about like, here's how I feel, but also to say like, here's how I feel about you. That can be like a really scary thing to do, especially if you're in a community or you have like friends or, you know, society or media telling you that you're not allowed to do that. And one of the things that's really important when I was doing my gratitude stuff before GiveThx, like it would be putting kids in that vulnerable place, but it almost like wasn't safe enough. And having this platform where they're able to go on and message each other individually, and the only people who get it are the people who actually receive the note, they see it, allows them to practice the ability to share gratitude and to express their emotions and feelings. I had a student for 2 years when I first met him. When he was upset, I would have to sit next to him. Like he couldn't articulate what was wrong with him. He just needed me to sit next to him. And he was someone that really actively tried to build his ability to share how he felt. And when we got to start using GiveThx, he really took to it. And one of the last things that he told me before we went on summer break was that he felt more emotionally available. And like, I hadn't said that to him before, and I don't know where he got that from, but I think that he had recognized in himself that he was able to like access those emotions and be able to share them. I tried like not to freak out when he said it. I was like, oh yeah, cool. But because I was so happy for him. But it's really, really important, especially for our boys, to be able to have that, not only have that space, but see how important and necessary it is for them to be giving and sharing that as well. So I just wanted to add on to that. Mike. Oops. Let's see.
Ms. Quintero had mentioned how at the beginning of the day, she would ask her son, what was he thankful for? And I remember when I was in her class, I loved to hear, what did he say? Why? Because as a little child, their mind is open to so many different things. Their perspective is a lot wider than ours. Why? Because usually we're focused more on the logistics, more on facts and processes. And I love to hear, and it also opened my perspective because I was also more aware of different things in my life, small things that I might not have noticed, but he opened my mindset, and it was truly amazing. I remember going to class. It was one of the things I was super excited to hear about. And it also changed my perspective when going to school because school wasn't just books, class, grades. Now I had friends. I had the opportunity to share. It was more of a community, you know, where we were socially active. It was just having conversations and not just about books.
I hate to interrupt because this is beautiful and wonderful, and I really appreciate all the thoughts and experiences that you shared. I do want to create some time for Q&A. However, before we pivot to that, I did want to create some space to add a parent voice and the voice of a longtime supporter who has a lot of expertise in ed tech in schools to provide her perspective. That's Jennifer Carolyn, and I'm excited for her just to share some of her thoughts. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mike. I'm so inspired by this group here. Listening to you has been really wonderful. And thank you for sharing your experience and your vulnerability, and just it's really great. So I just quickly on my background. So I'm a former public school teacher. I grew up in Chicago, went to Whitney Young High School, which is the same one that Michelle Obama, our most famous alum, went to, and became a public school teacher did that for 7 years. Moved out to California and studied differentiated learning. I got my master's degree and became very interested in just the tools that teachers had available to use. And this was a time when consumer tools like shopping and banking were becoming really popular, and yet teachers had very primitive tools to do their job. So I went to go work at a venture fund and learn how venture capital worked and how funding went to these types of technologies. And then I founded my own fund called Reach Capital with an R. And we invest in education technology tools from the earliest stages. So you may know some of the companies that we incubated or founded are like Newzella, ClassDojo, Nearpod, TeachFX, companies like that. But just want to give you my background, just to give you the lens that I'm coming at this from. And I got to know Mike, in actually quite a while ago, I guess, when he was involved in a school that I was looking at. But I love the GiveThx tool. I just fell in love with the idea behind it. And my child, I have 3 children, and my youngest is 10, and he's in 5th grade. And I started seeing how he would use he like really was excited to look at his inbox, I guess, of the notes that he'd received from his classmates. And he just it really lit him up, and he was so fired up by it and would talk about it the whole day. And so it in part inspired me to support GiveThx. So I want to thank you for all that you guys are doing in working with the students and using gratitude in your daily practice. I think it's so incredibly important to start teaching children early on about it's like a muscle, how to use gratitude. So that's all.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that and for your support. I'd love to connect with a few questions now that people have shared in the Q&A and even shared before to end this time together. One that's there is, and anybody, feel free, buzz in. How do you think GiveThx can help students in the classroom overall once in-person learning starts up again for a lot of folks? So reconnection. Who would love to speak to that?
I'll jump in there real quick because I teach 9th graders. And so they've come in from 6 different elementaries in our town into 9th grade. So they don't know each other. Lindsay kind of talked about that. They get in, they don't know everybody. And because we're using GiveThx on a regular basis, they're in groups, they talk to each other, then they go GiveThx. And it's a little contrived at the beginning. Jennifer was talking about it being a muscle, right? And we have to teach it. So at the beginning, we're trying to work that muscle. But they actually commented at the end of last December when we went off on break, and I asked them for some feedback. They said, please continue using GiveThx. I feel like I know my classmates. And so it will still have a role when we go back. I was using it when we were in person because, as everybody's talked, it can be hard to say thank you at the beginning when you're first getting to know somebody. and this creates a safe place to practice and build that muscle. But it's actually been almost like a better tool for this to get these guys who've never met each other, and they're saying thank you to each other. And so now when we go back to the classroom, they're gonna be like, oh, you're the person I was saying thank you to on GiveThx, and you were helping me and you gave me feedback on my paper, and now I get to meet you in person. And so I think it's gonna have an equal role, but it's actually helped build this remote learning community.
I also just think it primes you like for good feelings. And so starting class off with like a gratitude prompt about maybe your life, and or ending class with like sending thank you to someone, like no matter what the learning was like for you in that space. And we know that class can be tough for people. And sometimes it's tough on students and the teachers don't even know. We have no way of knowing how tough that class was for a student, but having a chance to kind of like end on this practice that is like giving or receiving gratitude kind of helps like close that space out, and the kids can leave with this like positive feeling versus whatever academic feeling they were having before. And so when I think about it, I think of it as a way to almost like a positive practice to start or close a class, because we were doing gratitude in person, but we didn't get to do GiveThx in person. We started doing GiveThx when the distance learning happened. The timing just worked out for that. But I would use it in the classroom, I think, is like just like a practice. Like, we know what time it is. It's time to like flex that muscle, time to send some love. And one of the things I really appreciate right now is that there's an opportunity to see like connections. So it's like 3 new connections this week, which is like when a student sends a message to a new student, and the amount of connections grows throughout the year. So in the beginning, they're like very much connecting to the people they know versus like people they don't know as much. And as the year goes on, you see them kind of stepping out of that, like, this is my friend, and stepping into like, I want to appreciate this person. I want to like value this person, even if they're not my friend, right? Not everyone is going to be friends, and that's okay, but you can respect and support each other in a community without everyone being best friends. And I love that this tool is like helpful for that.
I actually do want to add something. This is more of what Mrs. Quintero was saying, but a lot of the learning, the reason why we even go to school and meet with people rather than homeschooling is because we need that social interaction as humans. And working together really supports your learning. That's why it's very important to get to know your classmates and really know who they are to work well with them. And GiveThx, especially once like in-person learning starts up again, is going to be very awkward. I'm going to definitely find it weird to like verbally talk to somebody's real face rather than just a Zoom screen after like 8 months. So it'll make it a lot less awkward to like start giving GiveThx notes to them.
I totally agree with that. I mean, jump in. My 2 older kids went back this last week, and they were so nervous, like way more nervous than I had anticipated that they would be. And I do think anything that can be done prior to build those connections one-on-one with the kids is going to help ease that, ease that transition.
Thank you all for that one. There's another question. I'm going to answer a few typing, but one from just came in, says, has there been any issue with some students not receiving messages from others or being left out? How do teachers and students address that concern?
Well, I'll jump in there. As a teacher, I can see, well, and as students, you can, when you pull up your GiveThx platform, you can see everybody on there, and you can see how many times you have given somebody a thank you note. And so I think it's on the teacher's perspective. Part of it falls on the teacher. How do I set students up to GiveThx? If I set them up to only be partnering with the same person all the time, then that's the person they're going to give thanks to. But the program is actually given a lot of practices. So sometimes we'll do a gratitude wave. So just in remote learning, I have a student, 9th grader, who comes off mic a lot, and he says good things. Like he will drive the kind of conversation. And so one day I said, hey, let's give a gratitude wave to so-and-so, because look how much he's participating and helping all of us learn. And so everybody gave him a thanks that day. So as a teacher, I can see a lot of data and I can monitor and be looking out like, hey, this student hasn't gotten a thank you note. Sometimes I'll start it, right? I'll be like, you know what? Every student in my classroom is important. So maybe I need to start this, and I give them a thank you note. And I find the thing that I need to appreciate about them, and I send them that thank you note. I actually have about once a month, I will go through and I will just say, who have I not given a thank you note to lately? And I make sure I do that. But I also have the students do it. Hey, take a look at the list of your classmates. Find somebody you've never said thank you to and tell them thank you. Or I partner them up one-on-one. You got a lot of help from your partner today. Go back and write them a thank you note. And so that guarantees that they're going to give each other a thank you note. And so there's different practices that the program will help you with if you're learning it, but that I can also just play with what works best in my classroom to make sure that every learner is being recognized.
I was really afraid of this like whole situation when it was like the beginning of it, like, because there was some of the tasks that were like, look at your favorite note you've gotten. And I was just worried. I was like, what if the kid doesn't get one? Especially because in distance learning, it's easy to not be seen, especially if you have your camera off, if you're not talking. But it hasn't happened. And I've done a couple of my own practices, but I've checked, and it's every single class, everyone has gotten at least like 3 notes. And I also have done some intentional kind of teacher moves on my part as well. Like if I know that there's a kid who is trying really hard, who hasn't maybe gotten it, like any gratitude, like I will give gratitude to that student in class, or just like acknowledge that and kind of call like out something like really like positive the student did. And a lot of times what I see is that kids will kind of follow up with that and be like, oh, I know who I could talk to because I heard about this today. Like, you were really brave today. That was really cool. And I also will say that being a teacher giving gratitude to kids is really powerful as well. And so I do the same thing where I'm like, who have I not checked in with? And it's kind of shocking because I think I have done it, but I realize like it's a good tool to go back and be like, I need to make sure I check in with these kids. I also have a couple of like superstars, 2 of them are in here, but I had some kids who just really liked the gratitude and really enjoyed that process. And sometimes when there was kids who I felt like maybe could use like a little bit of a boost, I would just talk to them about it and be like, hey, maybe you can send some love to a couple of these students today. What do you think about that? And they would always be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to say, because they recognize the impact it gives, which is one of the biggest things. Like kids immediately, and people like immediately feel that response and they want to do it more. They want to give more. So it's never been like, I never have to pull teeth to ask kids to send each other messages because they're like kind of just willing to do it. There's always a bunch of them that want to do it a lot.
I have one more and maybe a bonus one. We'll see. We're getting close to time here. But one person asked beforehand, how can this work for students with different identities and needs? Could be language, could be special needs, could be people who are just shy and don't want to participate. How can this work for them?
For me, oh, Ms. Contreras.
No, you go for it, Mr. Donovan.
I think that this is a really unique opportunity because I don't know how most school systems are, but really checking in with who else supports these students and understanding like what works well for them. So at our school, like we have a very, very strong learning center where they're helping kids who have individual needs and kind of connecting with them to ask and check to see if these languages or practices are working with these kids has been really helpful for me, but I know that that's not the case everywhere. I kind of feel like, and this is kind of tough to say, but I kind of feel like gratitude is like the equalizer in a lot of ways, because it's almost like you can always find something about someone. But I don't have like very specific strategies around that, but I'm definitely curious about exploring that topic more.
I happen to have 2 classes of learners who are English language learners. English is definitely their second language. And so I just prep it with language frames. And so it's like, I appreciate that you blank, or I thank you for blank. And so I've just given some language frames in there. And it also helps the learners maybe with special needs. But I say that, but like we had a back to school night, even though we were remote, like we had masks on and we got to like, hey, I'm going to be your teacher. And I had students, I said, is this your mom or dad? And they're like, yeah. tell them thank you for taking the day off to come with you today and walk you around campus and help you pick up your stuff. And the kid's like, you know, they didn't know what to do. You could tell those who haven't practiced it. And I said, just say, thank you, Mom, for bringing me to school today, right? I'm coaching them. I'm telling them what to say. And so even though I say it's for my English learners or for my learners with some special reading and writing needs, it's for those who've never developed the practice either. So I will just, when we first start, I just have a language frame up there. And then I have like some thoughts like, did they help you? Did they clarify an idea for you today? Did they help you understand an assignment? And I just kind of have like a box that they can choose from at the beginning. But then like Mr. Donovan was saying, then they get in the rhythm and they're like, oh, I got this. And they get comfortable with it and they start making it their own.
Personally, I actually think it's just time. Because for me, when I started giving thanks notes, like thank you notes to people, I felt very shy. I was like, should I send this or should I not send this? But as I used that program and had people like send notes to me, then I would kind of feel a reward, like Mr. Donovan said, and be like, oh, I want to send one too. You know, I want to make people feel good and I want to feel good. And then like people slowly become natural with the platform.
We have one more question. Thank you all so much. I know we're just over time, but this is so rich. I'm selfishly wanting to hear the rest of your thoughts on this. This question just came in. Do you believe this is a good tool to address and reduce bullying, cyberbullying in school?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
So when it came to using gratitude, I remember the first time I remember Mr. Donovan posting about it and first me being introduced to it. And I remember first seeing and feeling a little bit doubtful, like, oh, like who should I send it to? And at first I was sending it to like my close friends and just being who I was and just sending some gratitude statements to them. And then I started to realize that, you know, this has become a daily habit of mine. This has become something that I love doing. And when we're talking about bullying and cyberbullying, it's something that I definitely faced in the past and something that definitely was like, at that time, I could not imagine people sending gratitude statements to one another. I could not imagine it. So when I first saw like that everyone in the classroom was starting to send gratitude notes to one another, I was starting to see like, okay, this can become a normal thing for all schools, for all communities, right? This is not just something that, you know, it's rare, right? It's not rare. It's something that should become normalized because using gratitude builds so many relationships with a whole community, making us feel comfortable with one another. So yeah, when we think about bullying and all that, I definitely think that it could, like using this platform especially, it can contribute into helping each other to feel recognized, to feel valued, to know that it's okay to compliment one another. And bullying could also strive from like bad things happening at home, right? It could strive from a couple of things that is affecting them, which makes them think that, they tend to just, want to make others feel that same way. But using this platform, it shows that we don't have to act in that manner. We can show each other love, appreciation, right? So I think that's just my response to the question.
Kind of to reiterate,
go ahead.
sorry, what Ariella said, it does really help. Why? Because usually the person that is bullying is because they have some sort of insecurity or something hurting them. And just give thanks, it changes their outlook into something more positive, something more friendly. And if they feel good with themselves, happy, they project that feeling onto others, and it just gets rid of the cycle. And overall, it gets rid of that bullying and hatred.
I totally think there's a quote that I love. It's hard to hate people up close when you know them up close, or you're getting to know them, you're building those bridges and connections. And I do think that that it starts in very kind of tenuous, small ways, like just a note of thanks or recognition, I see you, and it kind of builds from there. So I don't think it's going to like completely alleviate bullying. That takes a more systemic approach likely, but I think this is one tool to help build.
Just like, what everybody said, bullying or a bully doesn't just bully for no reason. They do it to probably take out their pain or just subject their pain onto somebody else because they want to get rid of it. They need to take their anger out on someone. And I think the best way to get rid of bullies is like, I don't know if you guys have heard of this phrase, but kill them with kindness. You can get rid of the spite and the hate by sending a gratitude note to somebody. Like, I definitely had some people that I disliked in my class, but after Give Thanks, I pretty much liked everybody because it was just sending gratitude notes to them and then getting gratitude notes. It just made me appreciate like the awesome person that they were.
I know we're like super over time. This question is really important too, because I also think a lot about how kids won't stop bullying. So there's like the kids who are bullying and the kids who are being bullied. And then there's the kids who are like on the sidelines who are not saying anything because they want to feel safe. They don't want it to become about them. And so when I look at gratitude, the skill of like recognizing the value of another person, like that skill is something that can replace that, like, I don't know what to do. Right? Because sometimes you can't stop people from saying mean things and being being unkind. But if you witness that, you can also reach out and be like, hey, also, here's this positive thing I see about you. Here's this thing I appreciate about you. And then when you have both sides, when you have people saying positive things to you and people saying negative things to you, it's a lot easier to not listen to the negative, right? Because you're like, yeah, this person said this really mean thing to me, but also like 3 people like really spoke up for me today. And it's like they get that choice to say, I'm going to pay attention to this. I'm going to pay attention to the good. You can't eliminate the bad all the time. People are always going to bully. That's just, I think it's a part of like how they feel about themselves, like everyone was saying. But also we need to kind of equip the other people to intervene and be like, hey, also, I appreciate you for these reasons. So the person who is receiving that hate can make that choice, or kind of have the options to be like, okay, these people say this, but also these people say this, and which one feels better for me, which is like a practice that we talk about with the gratitude with my students.
And I don't know if I can just throw something in there. It kind of reminded me of this, when we're talking about it's got to be more systemic if we want to make a change across the board. But I know I've had several of learners tell me like, hey, we loved your class because we felt safe. And I got to admit, most people don't love English, right? You got to read and write. That's what you got to do. And you got to write essays. And we're not the class that everybody says, oh, we just love going to English class. But they felt safe in there because of the practices that we were building in there. And so that they could come into that room and they could be themselves and they could do their thing, they could make mistakes and they could do all of that. And I think the learners, because, it started with the program, but then it becomes what we do. It just becomes what we do. And so then when that is what we do in that class is we are including people and we are being thankful. I'm thankful you argued with me today. And thank you for pushing my buttons today. It made me like really think about what I believe. I appreciate that. It just let them know that everybody had a place in there. And so then when I know I have a place, I'm not trying to kick you out of my perceived place. I have my own place. You have your own place. We all have our place. We're giving thanks. We're making this classroom work with our variety of opinions and our belief systems. And we're making this class a beautiful place. And so students would just tell me like, I loved your class, Mrs. Quintero. You pushed us, but it was safe in there. And so I think, if we can make that systemic where people know that it's I know it was a catchphrase there for a while, safe places, right? But there should be safe places. There should be safe places, especially for children on a high school campus or an elementary school campus. It should be a safe place. And so if we can do that by our practices as teachers and by what we include, and then the students getting on board, and you heard them today, they love it because they get that gratification that comes from, hey, I'm accepted in this room. That's when you start to create those systematic changes within your own school system, and then those can move out.
And safe classrooms are classrooms where people can learn. Sorry, I love this conversation.
And I am so sorry to bring it to a close. I mean, I guess I would just ask one lightning quick follow-up that's connected to this, because it was a question that was asked. How do boys react to this? How does this work with masculinity and their own identity? Do they buy into it as much? How do you support this? Maybe just briefly speak to that. And then I would ask one of our students to just kind of think of a thanks note example, because we've had people ask, can you give an example of a thanks note? Maybe just to end on. But briefly on the masculinity side and the engaging boys side, just a brief comment on that would be wonderful before we end with a student.
I love reading my guys' notes. We were supposed to, one of my male students was supposed to join us tonight, and he was unable to, work came up, but he actually talked about, and I chose him and I asked him to come on here because his thank you notes are so in depth. They're not just the typical, hey bro, thanks for helping me out today. They get specific and they get to like, I appreciate the fact that you helped me do this. I wasn't sure what I was doing. I'm thankful that you're my friend. And he had made the comment when we had talked, he said, I feel like I can do that and I give thanks because my friend isn't going to feel the need to be like, oh yeah, whatever, man, that he just has to accept it. And so I feel like the males in my classroom have actually grown the most. Not that females can't stand from giving thanks, we need to, but I feel like the males have grown the most because they have been given a very safe place. Only them and the person they're sending it to and Mrs. Quintero can see their note. And so they've been given a very safe place to develop this thank you, and I appreciate you, and somebody appreciates me back without all the typical male, whatever, man, type things that go on. So Mr. Donovan's a guy, he might be able to speak a little bit more, but I have loved reading the guy notes.
Oh, I mean, I'm there for it. All day. I love it. Especially because I noticed a trend too, that in the beginning, it's usually more common for like the female students to give more thank you notes. And then towards the end, what I've been seeing, especially this year, is I've got like 6 sets of like best friends who are boys, and they're like writing novels to each other in there. And I think that it's really about creating like normalcy around these things. And like me being a male, I wrote these two, I wrote them all gratitude notes the first year I was with them to show them that it's okay for me to do that. And so I think that having that space for them where they don't have to see the other person's reaction, they don't have that opportunity for them to like downplay it, because also receiving gratitude can be very awkward and it can feel weird, especially if you're not used to that kind of emotional stuff. I know, because I gave so much to my boys who were like, for the first like 2 months of dealing with me. But now it's just like, it's a way for them to build a positive relationship with each other and not feel weird about it and not feel like they're going to judge each other. They're so kind to each other in these messages. I love it. I absolutely love it.
I was hoping I could read a gratitude note that one of the boys in my class sent me. And a couple of the boys, when they start sending the gratitude notes, I would always be like, yes, let's break this society norm. Let's break it, because men should be able to show emotions and not feel weird about it, right? So I wanted to read one that really just was one of the many factors as to why I was building that respect I had for myself and self-love that I talked about in my previous responses. And he started off with, I wanted to thank you for being so awesome. Believe it or not, I look up to you and the way you do your work, efficient and thorough with your work. It amazes me. I respect all you do, and I hope you can accomplish your dreams. Thank you, Ariella. Now that right there, I was just blown away by this. I was like, thank you. Like, not only did that make me see that I was helping my classmates, not only the females, but the males as well, that they were seeing me and that I could help them speak up and then express how they feel about their classmates. I think that was just something I really valued. And I remember this other time when we were having another GiveThx chat where one of the boys who was speaking from our school wrote a GiveThx note on the spot, like right when we were in the meeting. And just that encouragement, that student support, not only from females, but from both male and females, shows the amount of like the community in that, like, it's just so amazing. And, just let's break those society norms, please. Like,
I also have a note that I would like to read. And like first I kind of want to also answer the question. I think that if we're taught better than what society tells us at a young age, we can definitely break those society norms. Like through the GiveThx platform, we were kind of, I don't know, talking back to society, like telling everybody who believes that boys shouldn't show emotion that it is okay to do that. Like it's totally fine, and there's nothing's gonna happen to you if you do. So one note that I got, or actually I sent this person a note first, and he started it off like, "Oh my God, I just want to say that you gave such a thoughtful gratitude note, and I really, really appreciated what you said. You were always willing to help people, not just in math, but other subjects as well. You were an awesome team member and a great leader. I also hope that you are staying strong and doing well during these tough times."
That is absolutely wonderful. And I am very sorry to end things here, but we are way over time. What a lovely problem to have. I just want to thank all of our panelists for sharing your wisdom and your experiences and your vulnerability with this. And I want to thank our attendees who joined us, and I hope you leave with some new ideas for how gratitude practice can support well-being and community in schools. I'm just so grateful to all of you. And as far as those tuning in, if you do want to learn more, we really do hope that you stay in touch with us, and so we can follow up. And if you want to be involved and support this program and scaling all this wonderful impact that you're hearing and seeing from these fantastic learners and educators, we would be delightful to connect with you. So thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone, and hope you have a wonderful evening.